Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everybody to the Joy Spot. I always say this, but I am so excited for today's show. If this is your first time meeting me, welcome. My name is Shari Alyse, also known as America's Joy Magnet, which we've really got to work on that branding because limiting myself to America is totally silly. I am a two-time TEDx speaker. I'm a best-selling author, of course, the host of this, and my mission here is to help reconnect and reignite joy in the world and back to the people. The Joy Spot is a show that explores with thought leaders the different ways that people, individuals experience joy. And today is no different. Our guest, which I'm going to read her bio in just a moment, but I just want to see who's here. Say hello if you are joining. Let me know what platform you're watching from and where in the world are you watching from. So without further ado, I'm going to talk about today's guest, and I'm going to put on my glasses. I don't usually do this, but I'm feeling like I need them. As the world's first chief heart officer, it's Claude's mission to infuse empathy and inclusivity into every aspect of VaynerMedia and inspire other organizations to do the same. To Claude, leading with heart means being unafraid to let go of traditional HR methods in order to unlock the greatness in people. At a young age, Claude was repeatedly told that she thinks too much with her heart, something she has now learned is a superpower. As a non-traditional learner, she left college after 2 years and had an epiphany while on a 93-day outward bound trek. It was up to her to change the narrative of her life. And in order to do so, she had to change her thinking. This power has evolved into what Claude calls emotional optimism, a concept that is key to her heart-first leadership style. Claude leads over 2,000 people of different generations, overseeing talent management, employee retention, learning and development, DEI, culture, and people operations. Before becoming a CHO at VaynerX, she held leader positions both at JWT San Francisco and London, Publicis London, and Say Media. And in 2002 to 2005, she founded and ran a surfing and outdoor adventure company for women in the San Francisco Bay Area. Her success leading people and guiding client relationship comes from a mantra that she teaches to everyone she crosses paths with. Be someone people want in the room. I love it. Please welcome to the Joy Spot, Claude Silver. Hi, Claude.
Hello. Thank you so much for reading that bio. It's so wonderful to be here. It's been a long time coming.
I'm very excited to have you. And I want to share with you one of the reasons why that I asked you to come on this show. And number one, it's of course because of your heart. But you started showing up. You started showing up in my LinkedIn feed. I follow Gary Vee. So for those who don't know, that the VaynerMedia is from Gary Vaynerchuk. And so I follow him and I started seeing you in my feed, and I say see, but what it really was is what I felt. And I felt humanness. I felt connection. I felt heart. I felt compassion. And of course, I felt joy. And that is why, because as I shared in your, either this bio or one that I read, you talk about that your passion is really helping people to show up as their full selves. And to me, showing up as our full selves, and what my TEDx talk was about, is what joy is. It's connection to our full selves and the expression of that. So I just needed you to know that first as to why I asked you to be here.
Thank you. I love that. It gives me the chills. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So you wrote recently on LinkedIn, and I'm going to read it because it really struck me. You just posted it. You said, it starts with a rumbling, a hunger inside for more, for different, for joy, for growth, for freedom. And then it moves to self-awareness. Do you hear the voices and messages? Do you allow yourself to listen, or do you push them away? This is how you described leaving your former career and beginning your new one. it takes a real deeper sense of awareness to not only, like, we all can hear it, but to then recognize it and listen in and lean into that. I'm curious for you, when did you become aware of your awareness?
That's a great question. When did I become aware of my awareness? I would say very, very early on. I didn't know it was called intuition, but I had a very strong sense of this voice inside, this something inside that I knew was a guide of some sort. Had no idea what it was called, but I've always had that. And I will be perfectly honest, I really ran from that for some time in adolescence because I didn't want to listen to that. I wanted to see what Claude and Claude's ego could figure out, like get the internal, my internal North Star. So I was aware of it at a very young age. I was able to pick up on things, and I've talked about this before. Being dyslexic has really given me the great gift of learning how to figure the world out slightly different ways. But really, in my 20s, I left school after my second year of college at Rollins College, and I went on a discovery road trip, if you will, starting with Outward Bound, but also I studied clairvoyancy and energy and chakra clearing and deep psychology, and tried to figure out how to meditate and all of those things in my 20s. I was in San Francisco, so it was the right place to do that.
Well, you're speaking my language here, so
yeah. It was like San Francisco just embraced me.
Yeah.
And in a lot of the both stillness and discomfort of my 20s, and as we all feel that in our 20s, I also found some kind of peace. I also made, well, let me actually be clear. I made peace with myself. By the time I was 28, I made peace with myself. That doesn't mean I didn't fall down anymore. That doesn't mean I didn't, have terrible days and breakups and all kinds of stuff. I did, but I had peace within myself, which is something I fought for a very long time.
Whew. I feel that this is going to sound a little, well, not creepy. Well, maybe creepy and stalkerish or just weird. I'm just going to preface that. But I saw on your website, like, your timeline of, at the age of 5 and at the age, and the reason why I say, like, may sound weird because we've never met before, is I feel like we are a split egg. Your timeline very much is the same as mine, and that intuition from a young age, and then going down that path, and then really having to that self-discovery and leading to, as you're saying, that inner peace. And I love that you preface that doesn't mean everything suddenly gets better, and it's still that journey you talk about. It will always be a journey, right?
Always.
Yeah.
Always. Yeah.
You talk about emotional bravery. Is this what you would consider that digging in, that leaning in?
It is. It's actually the precursor to what I call emotional optimism.
Yeah.
The bravery is knowing that you are okay, knowing that you are caught and held somewhere, whether or not it's your parents, your best friends, your job, or the universe. It is knowing that you are safe in this moment to bring out whatever is going to come out. And you and I and everyone else knows that we carry so much shame.
Yep.
And we run and put layers and layers and layers on top of that so that we don't have to be brave, right? We fall into maybe a victimhood, which I have as well in my past. But the emotional bravery, I didn't have words for it. I just knew that at some point I was safe enough to just share, to just be with the warts and all, right? With the warts and all. And that led me to seeing and feeling what emotional optimism is, which is there's always hope. There is always faith. Once you cross that bridge from the armored you to the braver you, the more vulnerable, the more authentic you will never not have hope. You will never not have faith. You will have done that because you feel held. You feel as though there is someone or some great energy or 8,000 great energies holding you and rooting for you every day.
So powerful, Claude. And I'm setting this up because we're obviously going to talk about your work, but I don't think you can do the work you do without this journey, without that self, without the emotional bravery and the optimism. And I want to connect on this level with you where, for me, the optimism, that was a game changer for me, because before I became America's Joy Magnet, I used to call myself the dark cloud.
Oh my gosh.
I know, it's like this journey, but it was like everything that anytime anything went wrong, went right, I thought something was going to go wrong. And then there was that perspective shift because I started seeing in hindsight that everything always worked out in some way. And so that gift, I decided to stop waiting for hindsight and to trust in. And that is what when I hear emotional optimism, that for me is that. I'm like, that's what that was, Shari. That's what that is. It is that resiliency. It's the buoyancy that we're able to have, right? Like, because we know because we're safe, as you said.
Yes, yes, yes. And it is a big leap to trust. I get that.
Yeah.
From wherever we come from, it is a big leap to trust. But once you do, I tell you, you don't have to look back. You really don't. And I'm giggling that you called yourself a dark cloud. I called myself the black sheep in the family for years. And how do you think that energy landed on me? Because you are what you think.
Absolutely.
So I no longer call myself a black sheep at all. I do call myself a late bloomer, and I'm proud of that.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to say I do not call myself the dark cloud anymore as well. So, and there's definitely that journey of awareness. So you mentioned that, your passion is creating spaces for people to thrive in their lives, or in the workplace. Why do you think that, which by the way is joy to me, as I mentioned, why do you think that this is missing from so many workplaces, this permission for people to just be themselves?
Well, it's funny. It's the workplace, but it is the world. It is life,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And that's what you said. I think it's missing because the work day and the workplace was set up in a very different time that we're in today. It
Yeah.
was set up in a very different punch in, punch out. It was set up in quite frankly, a more heteronormative masculine way where most of the time it was males going to work doing the role. We know that males, generally speaking, are taught and trained to withhold emotion, to hide from, to run from. And so once upon a time, everyone else started joining the workforce. And who did they have to model after? Those people that were already there, those people that already shut the door, that had the shades down, that for whatever reason decided that armor was best, that we could lead from a top down ivory tower. I mean, I was at those workplaces too. And when you are being led from top down ivory tower, you are nothing. You are an employee.
Right.
You are a robot in many ways. And then I disagree. I don't see it. I don't use the word employees. I use human beings. That's what we are. So I think we were trained to come in and be very robotic and get the job done and leave. And as a Gen Xer, no one asked me how I was feeling.
Right.
No one asked you how you were feeling, right? We just went in, we did the work, and then we had our life at 5:30.
You're a trailblazer in your space. You're a truth teller. You are a authentic shower upper. I say that because when I was in the corporate workspace, which wasn't very long, because I realized that I didn't fit into that, because I was very transparent. I was very vulnerable. I shared with everybody, and people felt that, they appreciated it, but I didn't feel that it fit in. But for you, and why I'm so inspired by the work that you do, is because you stayed in it, and you're leading in it, and you're changing the workplace. And like, so what gave you that bravery to be able to continue to show up and be like, no, we're humans. This is yeah.
It's such a great way of phrasing the question, because you're right. I think a lot of the joy that I have every day, and the fact that this role has been successful for 7 years, and hopefully for 70 more years,
Mm-hmm.
is that I'm in the work. So I'm not philosophizing about how to treat people. I am treating people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not philosophizing about kindness and compassion. I am acting on it the best I can. And I do not hit home runs all day. Let's be honest.
Right.
No one does. But I will say I was very fortunate. I've worked in advertising for a very long time, with the exception of the stint surfing in the cold Pacific Ocean. And there was a gentleman that saw me at one of my agencies, and he saw me for kind of the psychologist that I am. He saw me for kind of the secret sauce in terms of being able to feel and empathize with people. And he plucked me from the client side to the strategy side.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I was at home. And I used that to propel me, even in my days of, oh, imposter syndrome, and I don't think I can do that, and I'm so dumb, and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I used that fuel that he gave me, by seeing me and plucking me out, to continue to just show up in what seemed like common sense stuff. I think the this is the conundrum that someone will have one day when they study my brain, and the ancient parts of my brain, which are, I did think I was dumb for a very
Mm-hmm.
long time, until I was about 35. I really did. I thought I had a missing chip. I just couldn't figure things out, because I
Mm-hmm.
thought too much with my heart, and I didn't realize the world isn't like that. I just didn't realize that. And then I made the switch at some point to become braver, and to really lean into positivity. I've always been a positive person,
Mm-hmm.
but to lean into it as like, no, actually it works. You just have to trust it. And so I have these two parts of my brain. One is much older, which is when I operated in fight, flight, fear, which is
Mm-hmm.
when I didn't like myself, which is when all of those things that we all go through consistently.
Yeah.
And then there was a switch to where I finally felt at home with what I was doing in the workplace, kind of matched up to my hobbies outside of the workplace, studying spirituality and energy work, and diving in deep to Jung and Maslow and positive psychology. And at some point, I met this wonderful, wonderful human being named Gary Vaynerchuk. And he believed enough in me to create this role that is my life's work, where I can marry everything together. And I understand when I'm talking to the 23-year-old or the 35-year-old or the 37-year-old, a lot of what they're going through, right? It's the lived experience a lot of times.
And when you say that, what I hear, the 23-year-old, the 63-year-old, we're all human, and we still connect on that heart level. And so, whatever that thing is, I feel like that's your secret. I don't know, secret, but that's your superpower, is that connection and seeing people for who they are. And so it doesn't matter what age they're at, right?
It don't matter. I'm going to be 54 next week. I still can't believe it, but
Happy early birthday.
thank you, Taurus. The all of this is a journey.
Yeah.
Whether or not we learn self-awareness in our last breath, or we learn it in this journey of life, like, it will happen. It will happen. It
Yeah.
might be your last day, but let's hope that it's not. Let's hope that you get to live into it for 60, 70, 80 years.
Yeah. Patrick says, I'm starting to see that talking about and acting on mindfulness in our workplace is beginning to rise like the
Yes.
phoenix.
Yes, 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 Patrick.
I was going to ask you how that's changed since you started and now, and what that's looking like showing up in these or the more masculine workspaces and all that.
Yeah. Well, the tide is turning, like he
Mhm.
said, that's for sure. And while masculine, archaic, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
dinosaur age, there are new generations. Millennials and Gen Z are changing this world. They are demanding that we are much more authentic and
Mhm.
vulnerable and honest. They are demanding that in their workplaces. It's going to take a while until it fundamentally all changes, but little by little, it is changing. It is evolving. Working here, I get to do that all day long because that's what we value
Yeah.
people. It's people first. 51% honey, 49% empire, but that 1% is all the difference right there, right? And there's also enormous amounts of loneliness and alienation in the world, which have always been there. But what have we older people done? Stigmatize it, put it in the corner. Let's not talk about it. And then what happens? Well, people really, really are in dire straits. And so I
Mhm.
would rather these people talk about their anxiety, talk about their ADHD, talk about whatever it is, and work together to find them solutions. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. They all, they could find their own therapist and whatnot, but
Mhm.
I'd rather we get real about it in the workplace.
It heals. It heals people on all levels. And what I love so much about what I see that your work is that, you're not separating work people from home people, because we're all the same person wherever we go. And we've got to treat people that way.
Yeah. And I think we also have to understand that there are some people that come into the workplace and they don't feel like they can be the same. They code switch. They feel like
Mhm.
they don't speak the same language. They might pray to different whatevers. Like we have to acknowledge and educate ourselves around what real inclusivity is
Mm.
and how we're not being inclusive in the areas that might stick out to us. So that's a that's a big journey that I think many, many, many of us are on. And there will come a day, maybe in our lifetime, maybe not, where we won't have to say DE and I because it just is.
Yes.
Say something else. Do
Right.
something else.
Yeah, where it's because obviously if we're pointing it out, there's still an issue. If we still have to include people, then there is exclusion.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Where you are not including, you are unconsciously excluding unless it's consciously.
How do you how do you like there's so many thoughts. Where does empathy start?
Oh, I love that question. Deep breath.
Yeah.
Empathy is an emotion. Kindness and compassion are how we act on empathy.
Mm.
Kindness and compassion we are taught when we are 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 10, 16. We are taught from the first breath we take when our parents show us kindness and our parents show us compassion, or our caregivers. Empathy is an emotion, just like fear, just like frustration, just like joy, just like satisfaction. How do you show joy? How do you show empathy? What are the actions that one takes? And so I believe empathy has the possibility of starting way up, way downstream in your early years, especially when you take a toy from someone. I have two very young kids. They're taking their Barbies and they're pulling each other's hair and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And you sit down and you try to instruct them on and teach them on why we don't do that, why we share, why we want to make sure that we're not hurting someone else's feelings. These are basic, basic things.
Yeah.
But we get into the workplace and we oftentimes decide to bottle all those emotions up or just to become the worker who has no emotions and I'm just going to work and I feel nothing. And it makes it a very, very lonely place to be. Not only for the people around you, but I'm sure for that person inside.
Yeah.
So Empathy, I think, like I said, compassion and kindness are the outputs. That's how you show them. And I believe that that starts very, very young.
And would you say, because in my own journey and when I speak to people, it's challenging to have empathy. It's challenging to be, and I say challenging, I use that term loosely, like to be kind, to be compassionate to other people if you have not
Yes.
done that and been that way with yourself.
Authentically, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I thought I was a very kind and compassionate person. And when I was a freshman in college, I remember walking down the street in Winter Park, Florida, and I was with a new friend, and she said, what do you want to be when you grow up? What are you studying?" And I said, "Oh, I want to be a psychotherapist. I really want to take care of people." And she looked at me. I will never forget. I was 18, and she said, "You can't do that until you start to take care of yourself." And that was a big eye opener at 18 years old or so. But the fact is, yeah, I mean, authentically, you have to know what it's like to care for little Claude. You have to know what it's like to say to little Claude, "Hey, it's okay. Let's name your fears. Let's put them in the back seat because you're really the one driving the bus, little Claude." You know?
Yeah.
So
Are you
when you,
talking about this in the workspace?
pardon?
Are you when you go and speak in in companies and are you talking about this in the workspace?
1000%.
I'm
1000%.
like, I don't know why I'm still blown away by that
Yeah.
because I
Look at
never
the
thought
book
in
I
my
hand.
lifetime
Look
that
at the book I hand out to people. Codependence no more. I
mm,
hand this out. I hand out, "You are a badass." I'll hand out anything that feels relevant and easy for people to really grasp. And they're just tools, right?
yeah,
You have to do the work. You have to do the work. No one else can do the work except for you. And when you do, man, oh man, it just the dividends, it just pays off and pays off. And your light and your energy and your joy radiate out to others. And what else are we doing here if not spreading what we have? And I mean spreading the good.
you talk about I think it was in a podcast or a blog about, how easy to be negative or
Mhm.
people, the hard wiring, and just really how it's not easy
I mean,
to be negative.
yeah, it's like this is it's not easy to be negative, just like soft skills are actually very hard to do.
Yeah,
That's like
right.
that little, I don't know what you call it, contradiction, or it's very ironic. Yeah, sure, I could be negative. It's cloudy today.
Hmm.
Bummer. It's Friday, the weekend. It's going to rain. Well, what does that do? It's just wasting time. I should be like, all right, it's going to be cloudy. It's going to rain. Let me go figure out what to do.
Right.
I'm like, okay, well, there's only 1,000 other possibilities rather than sunbathing or going on a picnic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's, you know how for a while there were articles on how we use more muscles when we smile.
Hmm.
And I think people really like that because we always want to feel like we're strong. We're using muscles,
Look, I'm
tightening
working out.
tightening our face up and whatnot. And there was this big old push to smile more.
Hmm.
And I think there's a big old push right now to see what is possible for you. And when you see possibility, you cannot help but be positive. When
Yeah.
you see possibility, you are seeing hope for yourself. You're seeing another day. You're seeing something that will allow you to step into being the extraordinary human being that you are. Not that I tell you you are, that you are.
Right.
So we talk about all of this here. It's so important. I'm just beyond fortunate and honored that I get to do this. I get to speak to you. I get to speak to 2,000 people, speak to other people just about like, these are not, it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
Not. It's really not. You know how easy it is to be kind? Pick up your phone, text someone you haven't spoken to. It takes 5 seconds. "I appreciate you. I miss you. I'm thinking of you." Great. And they feel like, "Oh my God, wow, thank you for thinking about me today." Someone texted me yesterday, a good friend of mine that I met on LinkedIn, Megan Riley. She texted me yesterday. She goes, "I'm at LaGuardia Airport going home, and I was just thinking about you." How
Yeah.
phenomenal. How great.
It is. so much easier. And I know people don't see it because perhaps of things that have happened when they've showed up as themselves, but it is so much easier to just be led by your heart, to just show up as you are, to be that imperfect. I have something you wrote on your website that I want to share because I feel like it embodies you. I feel like it embodies who I think you are. And it says, be
Yeah.
human, welcome imperfection, inspire change. That for
Yeah.
me is everything. It's just be human. And when we allow, I'll say this. I remember the first time when I allowed myself to be imperfect, and I allowed other people to as well. It was
That's so
I
huge.
it
That's
changed my
really
dating
huge.
life. It changed everything
Yeah.
when yeah.
Um, so I love that. And I was opposite to you.
Mhm.
I thought I was damaged for a very long time and imperfect. So other people's imperfections were easy to meet because I was already there. I see
Mm.
you. Let's party. I see you. Let's
Mhm.
play. And that allowed me to live in a dark space
Yeah.
until
Yeah.
I got to start to change this narrative in my head, which I started on Outward Bound, and I still do it. I still work it. And it's a much more positive, it's a much more hopeful place.
Yeah. I mean, it's all a journey, right? Like, I mean, it took me years to be able to even get to that space of,
Yeah.
you know, being okay with my imperfections, with others, with acknowledging, noting, noting all that. Um, and it's still every day. It's a journey. And when
Yeah.
people think to me like, "Oh, you like just wake up and you pop out of like a toaster," and I'm like, "No." I was like, I practice intentional joy. I do the things that help connect me to my joy. Uh, because I know I look at life kind of as you were talking about, like, let's make a deal. You got what's behind door number one and door number two.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah. And I'm like, they can be positive and negative. Like they're both going to be the same, but it's like, how do I want to look at it? Which door do I want to walk through today? And it's absolutely the positive one. It's absolutely the one that's going to make us feel better.
Yeah.
You know,
And you hit the nail on the head or the head on the nail, however you say it. That's my dyslexia right there. Um, you
I
have,
hear it however you want me to hear it.
thank you. You have a choice. We all have this wonderful thing called choice. It's none of our business, the choice people make. We just hope those of us that have done so much work to be here, that people make the choice that will lighten their load, that will allow them to ride easier.
Oh, I love that. Ride easier. I think grace. I think gentleness. All of that. We're closing out soon, and I have so many more questions. But so I want to talk about joy, of course. You said, I read that you said joy has the potential to come through all of us. It lives in human connection. Can you talk about that for a moment?
Yeah. Look at, we're strangers. You and I just met.
Mm-hmm.
We're connecting on things that make us both light up. We're connecting in the positive rather than the cynical. Because, by the way, we could connect on the fact it's a cloudy day.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to take you and I down a cloudy path. But when we find people that, A, create that safety for us to be ourselves, create a place where we feel like we can authentically connect and belong, we're safe, 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 then you can share that much more with yourself. That connection, I think that connection is that match. It's the match that then starts the joy, or then starts the journey to joy, or then starts the spread of it. The
I
spread of it.
love that you said the match because I don't know if you know much, but so I call it the five sparks. They're my spark plugs, and our engine is joy. Joy is the engine, and the five sparks are connection. So it's connection to ourselves, connection to others, to our planet, to meaning and purpose and creativity. And when we connect to each of those daily, we ignite our joy.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Totally.
I love that I got excited. I love that you ignite the match. So what brings you joy every day?
There's a number of things that bring me joy. I have to say, being a mom is something that I started much later on in my life, and I had no idea how much joy I would get. And so seeing these little two creatures grow and use new words and say things and tease, that brings me enormous amounts of joy. Doing what I know to be my strength and comes naturally to me brings me enormous joy. I don't have to figure out how to do pivot tables in Excel. That doesn't bring me joy. I'll tell you the other thing that doesn't bring me joy, running.
Okay.
I wish it did for a very long time. I tried, and I don't like myself when I run.
Okay.
I don't run. Music, live music, connecting with people, having that aha. When I'm speaking to someone on a screen or in the room, and I get chills when they tell me some of their story, or when they show me or walk me through an awakening that they had, like, I am so lucky that I get to be a passenger with people every day. They invite me to be a passenger.
That is such a joy igniter too. Your gratitude right now, your appreciation for people, for things, for your children, all of that ignites joy. So the quick question about, so I'm curious, and it's about Gary. What have you learned from him? And also, what do you think that he's learned from you?
I mean, what haven't I learned from him? I think he is the most phenomenal teacher mentor. Some of the biggest things I've learned from him are patience, and that is patience in the micro and the macro. So it could be patience in an hour or patience in 5 years, 10 years. I've been with him 9 years now.
Wow.
Right. I have learned to concentrate on really the only thing that matters, which is people, and to let that noise go. You have to spend a lot of time figuring out what the 1% is for you.
Yeah.
For sure. And accountability on a completely different level. Completely. If anyone is upset here in any of our offices, having a bad day, crying or leaving, that is on me. That is on me.
Yeah.
Fundamentally. And so I have to own that. And I don't know what Gary's learned from me. Hopefully he's learned.
Sure you do. There's something that he's
another
changed.
skip and a step. I don't know. I mean, we have a wonderful bond, and I think he's gained a really, really trustworthy friend in me.
That's beautiful, because that gives him the trust, the safety, the openness to be able to be fully himself. You've given him that.
Totally.
So
yeah, totally.
So my closing questions for you is, when you look back on your life, what heart print would you like to have left?
I would like to leave the heart print of eliminating shame and bringing more tenderness into this world.
You have 30 seconds, and you have a microphone, and the entire world is listening. What mess? I know, no pressure. 30 seconds for a world message. Now, what message would you like to share with people?
How you make people feel is everything, and how you make yourself feel is where it all starts. That's what I would say. How you make yourself feel, you're the only person that can control that. And then you can spread that to other people.
Beautiful. How can everybody connect with you? How do you want them to connect? Where's the best place?
Sure. LinkedIn is huge. Write me. I write everyone back. It might take me a little time. Email, website, Insta, whatever. But reach out. I'm here. I'm human, just like everyone else. I want connection. I need connection. And I'm so privileged and honored to take up space with you today. So thank you very much for having me.
Claude, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for watching. There's been a lot of comments that I haven't been able to get to but I will go back and I'll share with you anything, or you could look in the comments. There's been some beautiful things that have been shared. Let me see if there's like one last thing that I could say. Let's see. Thank you very much for your inspiration and spiritual connection you've created. Thank you for such a heart-centered, joy-filled conversation. Great conversation. And it says, when I'm in alignment with my soul's joy of being, that lights me up.
Oh gosh.
I love that.
That's so beautiful. Thank
Thank
you,
you for all
everyone.
that you're doing to help people show up as their best selves, as their true selves, and for changing the world with your heart print.
Thank you
So
very
honored.
much. Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody. Take